Hello, this is MrChabry, and here we are with another Gym Leader type challenge. You guys voted for the Psychic type, so that's what we're going to see. How easy is it for us to get through this game using only Psychic types? For the name of our character, we're going to name him Nexus. For the rival, we'll just name him John. And since we don't have access to Psychic Pokemon yet, we're just going to grab Bulbasaur as our starter. That way we can use this thing later on as a cut Pokemon. Really, the early part of this game isn't going to matter as much because we're going to need to get Psychic types once we reach the second gym. And early on is a rush to get to our first Psychic type Pokemon. We defeat Brock, evolve our starter, and defeat our rival. And at the start of Hour 3, we finally have access to our first Psychic type, that being Abra. Now normally this would be the only Psychic type we have access to at this point. However, there is a Mew glitch that we can exploit so we can have access to Mew. And that's what we're going to do. Nexus is going to play around with the coding of the game to find this mysterious and mythical Pokemon. And once we have access to Vermilion City, we can actually use Diglett's Cave to go back and find someone willing to trade a Mr. Mime. And at this point, Drowsy is also available, so we're going to catch one of those. And while training, Abra is going to evolve into Kadabra. Now that we have some Psychic types under our belt, we can go back and face Misty, because now the battle's actually going to matter. She's going to start off with her Staryu. Kadabra just cuts right through it with Confusion. And now she's going to use Starmie. I have to do things different because Starmie does have a Psychic typing, so I'm going to paralyze it and then finish it off with Mew. Now it's time to head back to the SS Anne, so that way we can defeat our rival. We're going to use our fresh new Mr. Mime to get some experience, and then I want to bring Kadabra out here because Kadabra can cut through things pretty easily. I think it's time to get some experience on Drowsy, so if I can hypnosis this thing, it's going to just go down to multiple pounds. So that's what I'm going to do. I want Drowsy to level up so it's caught up closer to the other Pokemon on my team, and Pound will finish off the Kadabra after a few pounds. Last up is the Charmander. I'm going to try to hit this thing with Confusion as I put it to sleep, and we end up knocking it out with Drowsy as well. Next up is Lieutenant Surge, the Electric-type Gym Leader. We're going to send out our Kadabra, and now that it has Psybeam, it cuts through pretty much everything like butter. Voltorb and Pikachu go down. Raichu can actually take a hit, but even with him going for a crit and Thunderbolt, we survive because Kadabra has good special. Now it's in Celadon City where we come across something peculiar. There is a building labeled Game Freak Offices. There's a meeting room, and there's also a group of people claiming that they're working on the game. Is this world a game? Is Nexus coming? At Hour 8, we make our way to Celadon City Gym. Even though this is a grass-type gym, a lot of her Pokemon also have the poison type, so I'm thinking this should be a pretty easy battle. We're going to confuse the Victory Bell with a Psybeam, and it hits itself in Confusion. Next up, we're going to put Recover on here instead of Teleport because it's a lot better. And then Psybeam takes out the Tangela. Next up is Vileplume. This thing gets to poison us, but it's not going to matter. Kadabra is just too powerful. And at Hour 9, we finally evolve our Drowsy into Hypno. Now we face our rival in Lavender Tower. What are we going to do? We're going to try to train up our Mr. Mime a little bit. He's going to lead off with Pidgeotto. Not much of a threat. Next up is Execute. To be fair, this thing can take hits a little bit better, but it's still not going to do much, especially that its main move that's going to try to use is Barrage. It's garbage. Gyarados goes down to 1 Psybeam. Next up is the Kadabra, and I decide I'm going to Headbutt with Hypno. And that ends up being a one-hit KO. Last up, Mew is going to come out to use Dig on the Charmeleon, finishing the battle. By Hour 10, we have made it to the top of the tower, and we come across a mysterious ghost. Who could this ghost be? We need the Sylph Scope to find out. After receiving the good rod, we go ahead and capture Slowpoke from Celadon City, and we also capture a Poliwhirl that we're going to use to trade for a Jinx. Now, Jinx is a Pokemon that's actually good in Generation 1. Really the only generation that it was actually a good choice. By hour 11, I decided there is another Pokemon I would like to evolve, and that's going to be my Kadabra. But you need to trade it to evolve it. So what I'm going to do is actually hook up Pokemon Stadium, so that way I can trade Kadabra to evolve it into its final form, Alakazam. Now it's time to take on Koga. Since he is a poison type gym leader, I think this should be pretty easy. Alakazam just cuts right through pretty much everything he throws at it. Muck actually takes a hit. It's because Muck surprisingly has good special defense, which is crazy. But Coughing comes out. I'm going to give Mr. Mime some experience. Last up is the Wheezing. I'm going to set up a barrier because this thing likes to go for Explosion. And he's going to go for a Toxic instead. I'm going to try to whittle it down with Confusion. And we don't even have to worry about the Explosion. And after defeating Koga, for some reason Nexus comes back to Viridian City to learn how to catch a Pokemon. Peculiar. Odd. I don't know. After flying back to Cinnabar Island, we're going to go ahead and take on Blaine, the Fire-type gym leader. Now, Mew is going to come out here. I'm wanting to get some experience on Slowpoke, so we're going to do the switcheroo tactic to try to level that thing up. Mew comes out, throws a well-placed Psychic. It's enough to take out the Growlithe with 2 hits. Ponyta goes down to 1 Psychic from Alakazam. The thing about Generation 1 is that critical hits are tied to the Pokemon speed, and since Alakazam is so fast, it just completely wallops anything that comes out to try to take it down. Looks like Rapidash can take hits a little bit better, and unfortunately I did not heal before going into this battle. So Mew is not able to take it out. Looks to be like a 3-hit KO. Go into Hypno, hoping we have a better chance with this thing. But we're going to get caught into a Fire Spin, which is not good. I do put this thing to sleep to prevent Fire Spin Havoc again. And we do get level 29 with Slowpoke, which is really what I want. Now, Arcanine is not a Pokemon I want to play around with, because this thing can actually do a lot of damage. We go into Alakazam to finish it off. Now in Saffron City, we end up taking on the rival once again. This time, he's going to be a little bit tougher, but we've got Pokemon that can handle him a little bit better. I want to get Jinx leveled up a little bit more, so we're going to use it to Ice Beam his Pidgeot, which ends up being just enough. We're not going to worry about Ice Punch because Ice Beam is so good. Ice Beam on the Execute takes it down. Next up is Gyarados. I do have Thunderbolt on Marcel now, so that completely cuts right through that. He's got his own Alakazam as I actually go into my Mew because Alakazam has weak defense. I want to hit it with a Mega Punch. I miss a few times, but we do take it out. Last up is Slowpoke coming out here, trying to get some experience off of this thing. I want to see what would be better, and obviously Surf is the better option here. But it looks like one more slash and we will go down, so I'm going to go ahead and switch out, so that way we don't lose our Slowpoke and lose some of that nice experience. And now that we've defeated our rival, it's time to save Silphco from the clutches of Giovanni. So we're going to hop in here. A lot of his Pokemon do have the poison typing, so I'm thinking that this should make it pretty easy for us. Lola or Jinx comes out here, destroys the first thing with a Psychic. Next up is Kangaskhan. This thing can probably take hits a lot better, I'm not going to lie, but it still ends up being a 2-hit KO. Next up, he's going to send out his Rhyhorn, which Ice Beam cuts right through that so easily. And then last up is Nidoqueen. We just take that thing down with 2 Psychics. Not much of a threat at this point. A lot of his Pokemon relying on poison typing, makes it weak to our Psychic. And after saving the chairman, he gives us a Master Ball, one of the best items in Pokemon. So now we make our way to Sabrina. I'm also trying to train up my Slowpoke, so that way it'll finally evolve into Slowbro, and it'll be a lot better. But really what we're doing here is making our way to Sabrina, the Psychic-type gym leader. And here we are! The epic showdown of Psychic-type versus Psychic-type. How is this showdown going to play out? What's going to happen?
I had a vision of your arrival. What you have already done. You have played with the bindings of our world. You have pushed against what keeps this world together. You have played with glitches. Your Mew is evidence of that. You can see through things that many do not, and I know. I know what you have done. You have seen the greatest glitch of all, and you're planning to use that to dismantle this world with the help of that Master Ball you have. You're planning on capturing something with it that would make you unstoppable within our realm. I will stop you.
Starting off, Sabrina sends out Kadabra. As we send out the Slowpoke, we're going to go for Strength to try to get some experience on this thing. Hopefully we can evolve it by the end of this battle. And it looks like 2 Strengths will knock it out. Even with it trying to heal up, we're able to knock it out without taking that much damage. Now we go into Mew. Mew versus Mr. Mime. We just go for a Fly, go for a Mega Punch, and take that out. Next up is Venomoth. Now this is a weird Pokemon because it is not Psychic, but it has Poison typing. We destroy it easily with a well-placed Psychic. Next up is our Mew. Alakazam has terrible defense, so we're going to go for a few Mega Punches as this thing tries its best to survive. Sabrina realizes that the battle's pretty much over and there's not much she can do, so we're going to actually go into Jinx, try to put this thing to sleep, so that way we don't have to worry about it spamming Recover, and then Mew can come in here and go for some well-placed Mega Punches. We get a crit, which is really nice, and it does help out, and we're able to defeat Sabrina.
I will call on who all will help.
After Slowpoke evolves into Slowbro, it is now time to rush to the endgame. Giovanni stands no chance because his Pokemon are all ground type. Slowbro has Surf, and Slowbro has really good bulk, so nothing can really cut through this thing. Next up, this is John's last chance of trying to prevent Nexus from reaching his goal of taking on the Elite Four, and this is going to be the toughest battle. Lola here able to 2-shot the Pidgeot, which is great. Next up, we're going to see the Rhyhorn. We fought Rhydon at Giovanni's gym, so a Surf will be pretty easy here. Next up is Execute, not fully evolved, so we shouldn't worry that much about it. We're going to go for Fly with our Mew, giving us a super effective hit. Almost taking it out. Waste a turn to Solar Beam, and we finish it off. Next up is Gyarados. Marcel comes out and Thunderbolts this thing. It actually survives. That's because it's got 10 levels on us, but the second one will finish it off. Next up is the Alakazam. Now this is where this battle is going to get a little bit tougher for us, just because his Pokemon are a little bit tougher in levels, and Alakazam is fast, so it's going to take a little bit for us. We're going to hit it with a Hypnosis, trying to at least, and we miss a few of those. Psychic hits our Mr. Mime, taking it out. I'm going to our Alakazam here, and what I want to do is paralyze this thing, so we have a speed advantage. And looking at Seismic Toss, it looks to be a 4-hit KO. Now we'll go into Slowbro here, trying to Surf, and it becomes a battle of attrition, just back and forth here. Not really getting the advantage that we are hoping for, but we're finally able to take it out because it's fully paralyzed. And now the last part of this is going to be the toughest for us, and that is because Charizard here is pretty bulky. So we're going to take some nasty hits from this thing, as we see that we're barely doing anything. And it looks like John might actually be able to prevent Nexus from reaching his goal. But that is after Charizard's taken quite a few hits, and Hypnos comes in to finish it off. Now there's nothing in between Nexus and the Elite Four except for Victory Road. Using a bunch of rare candies received from the missing number glitch, Nexus is going to level up his Pokemon, readying himself for the Elite Four. And it's almost exactly the 17th hour that we make our way into the Elite Four to take on the final challenges that we need. And Nexus is going to try his best to get to his ultimate goal. We're going to face down this Dugong here. We get a light screen set up to help us to get some of these special hits. And it takes about 3 Thunderbolts to finish that off. Next up is Cloyster. This thing has terrible special, but we're still going to hit it with a Thunderbolt, which it surprisingly survives. Another one finishes it off. Next up is Slowbro. We're going to go for a Thunderbolt here because it's got really good defense, and if we can hit it on that special side, it's going to be much better. Next up is the Jinx, and I'm going to go into Mew just because I want to hit this thing with a Mega Punch. We actually miss, which is annoying, and a Fly brings it almost into range. I want to see if Psychic does better, but it doesn't. Next up is Lapras. I go back into Mr. Mime because we have the Thunderbolt, and we can see the bulk, the crazy bulk on this Lapras. Go for a light screen. I'm thinking that that was probably a mistake because I think Generation 1 light screen is different. It doesn't stay on the field. It just stays with that specific Pokemon. So that was probably a wasted light screen. I would have been better off clicking Thunderbolt there. But Lapras goes down, and that gives us a victory. Next up is Bruno, and Bruno has fighting types, and fighting is weak to Psychic, so we're just going to cut right through his entire team. He's really trying to put up a fight to prevent Nexus from getting to the end of this corridor, but fighting is not going to do anything. Even his two Onixes, they have terrible special, and really Machamp's really the only thing that might live a hit. It does live a hit, but Submission just does too little, so it ends up going down. And you might be thinking, what can stop a Psychic type? Obviously a Ghost type. But here in Generation 1, Ghost was programmed wrong. So Ghost does not have any effect on Psychic except for the move Nightshade. So, yeah, Ghost is terrible. Plus, the Ghost types in Gen 1 also have Poison types, so Hypno takes down the Gengar. We take down the Golbat with our Mr. Mime, and now Haunter comes out here, Nightshade being the only offensive option that really can do any sort of damage to a Psychic type from a Ghost type. Psychic from Alakazam completely destroys the Arbok on switch in as we go into Hypno to finish off this Haunter. Now that just leaves the final Gengar, and we're going to go into our Alakazam. We're going to slow this thing down as it tries to go for a Confuse Ray. We're going to hit it with a Psychic, get a crit, and we do switch into Slowbro because I want to give it a little bit of experience. And we knock out the Gengar. And here it is, we're about to face on Lance, the Dragon type, who actually has half his team Dragon, the other half all have Flying. Flying is the most common thing along his team. So Mr. Mime with Thunderbolt would be really nice. This thing goes for a Hyper Beam. Hyper Beam having the weird Gen 1 mechanic where if it knocks it out your opponent, it doesn't have to recharge. I'm going to take another Hyper Beam on Hypno as I disable the Hyper Beam. Now we're going to revive up our Mr. Mime so that way we can actually fight with that thing. And Thunderbolt finishes off the Gengar. Next up is Dragonair. We've got Jinx who can help out with some of these Dragon types. And it looks to be a 2-hit KO on the Dragonair. Next up, Dragonair again. We do the same thing, finishing it off. And Aerodactyl comes out. We're going to go for Slowbro on this one, just because we have the good defense. Aerodactyl has really high attack. And we can actually take this Hyper Beam and finish it off with a Surf. Last up is the Dragonite. This thing stands no chance against an Ice Beam. It does take two, however. And we don't quite knock it out with the first one, but Mew comes out here to finish the game. And here we are, our final Nexus. You leave me no choice. I will stop you. Here it is, our last battle. The last battle before Nexus reaches his ultimate goal. Pidgeot here, we're going to knock it out with two Ice Beams as it misses a Sky Attack. That Sky Attack probably would have done quite a bit of damage. We're going to go into Mew. We've already seen that this Alakazam is pretty tough to break through with our own Psychic types. And we're going to get an unnecessary special drop from that Psychic. I'm going to go into Hypno. My hope is we can hit it with a Headbutt maybe. Maybe put it to sleep. But we're going to hit ourselves in Confusion and eventually go down to a crit. Really annoying. We go into our own Alakazam. I'm going to Thunder Wave it and then hit it with Psychic. I'm hoping that I can drop its special. But our special is going to be the one that drops. I'm going to switch it up, go for some Seismic Tosses as I try to heal up. And we can see that things are not looking good, so I'm going to switch just because my special has dropped, and that's unnecessary. And Mega Punch still barely does anything. Let's go ahead and throw a Max Potion at this Mew so we can heal it up and not lose it here. And we're going to go for a Psychic. I'm hoping for that special drop. Not quite getting it. Mew going to level up. Right on. We've got an answer for this thing. We've faced this thing quite a few times, and we just cut it down with one well-placed Surf. Execute. We're going to go into our Jinx because we've got a lovely Ice Beam for this thing. We even get a crit, and Barrage hits us, but it's not the best move for this thing. He's going to go for a full Restore, healing up his Pokemon as we get hit with another Barrage, and Jinx goes down. Unnecessary, yes. we're going to go for a fly. We see that it does very little, and I'm really needing Mew to stay alive here. Now we go into Mr. Mime after the Execute gave us such a fight, and we're going to Thunderbolt this Gyarados as it goes for a Leer, and we finish it off with one more. Last up is Charizard. Now this is a Pokemon that is scary. I'm going to Thunderbolt it, trying to do as much damage as I can. I use a full heal, or a max potion to try to heal myself up, and it turns into a back and forth. We lose Mr. Mime, but Mew comes out and Mew finishes off the Charizard, and there it is. Now, the ultimate thing here is this is not where Nexus plans to end his adventure. Beating the league is just the first requirement for what he wants to do. But I want us to go ahead and take a look at some of these Pokemon. We've got Jinx really pulling through. Really good Pokemon. Alakazam, pretty much the MVP through a big chunk of the game. Really helping out with that speed and that high special. Next up is Slowbro. This thing has really good bulk, really helping us out in very tight situations. Next up is Mr. Mime, a surprising Pokemon that usually you have to go out of your way to find. It did some pretty good work. Hypno, really probably the Pokemon that I used the least, just because it's outclassed by the other Psychic types. And then here it is, our Mew, the surprising mythical that you have to play around with some glitches to get. And here it is. It took about 19 hours to get to this point, but there's still something left for us to do. Because since this is a Psychic type gym leader, this is the only playthrough we get to actually capture Mewtwo. Mewtwo, I will use you as a tool. You're mine. And now, for what Sabrina has been fearing, Nexus is going to make his goal a reality.
There's only one more option for us. We have to be the ones that pull the plug. It's now or never.